Imagine the scene: a black mechanic, his hands bearing the scars of 1,000 repairs, steps onto the tarmac of an exclusive airport where luxury and privilege reign supreme. The air thickens with tension as executives in their pristine suits cast scornful glances from behind the safety of the VIP terminal's glass. Laughter, sharp and mocking, ripples through the hangar as Marcus Jennings, his old pickup truck, a stark contrast to the gleaming jets, unloads his worn toolbox. Is this the expert they summoned for Mrs. Evans's jet? Richard Hastings, the operations director for Evans Aerospace, asked with a sneer, his voice dripping with disdain. I thought we requested the finest technician in the area, not someone who seems to have just emerged from a roadside repair shop. Marcus, accustomed to such prejudice, maintained his composure. His life had been a testament to resilience against such slights. What these onlookers didn't realize was that those very hands had saved more luxury aircraft than all the certified technicians at Westlake International Airport combined. With 15 years of experience under his belt, Marcus had garnered national awards for technical excellence, yet it was his face, not his resume, that made the first impression. Mrs. Evans' jet needs to take off in 2 hours, the runway supervisor announced, his tone suggesting both urgency and doubt. Our technicians couldn't pinpoint the issue. If you can't fix it in time, we'll have to summon the Atlanta team. The Gulfstream G650, a $65 million jewel, sparkled under the morning sun, its beauty almost mocking the situation. As Marcus approached, he felt the weight of critical eyes upon him, eyes filled with skepticism and curiosity. But among them, one pair stood out, observant, calculating, intrigued. Let him work, a voice sliced through the quietude, commanding and clear. Alexandra Evans, 43, CEO of Evans Aerospace and the jet's owner, strode across the tarmac with purpose, her navy blue suit a beacon of authority. As she stepped into the hangar, her presence was as commanding as the executive suit that draped elegantly over her frame, contrasting sharply with the meticulously styled cascade of her brown hair. She directed her gaze solely towards Marcus, bypassing the executives with a dismissive air. How much time do you require? She inquired, her voice slicing through the mechanical hum of the hangar. It depends on the problem, ma'am, Marcus responded, meeting her stare with unflinching resolve. You have 1 hour, Alexandra declared, her eyes flicking to her wristwatch, a timepiece that could have paid Marcus' salary for a year. Impress me, she added, her tone both a challenge and an expectation. As the executives retreated to the sanctuary of air-conditioned offices, Marcus opened the main access panel. Instantly, the severity of the situation became apparent. The pressurization system hadn't just failed. It had been fundamentally misdiagnosed by previous technicians as a mere electrical glitch. If this jet took to the skies, it would mean certain death at 45,000 feet, the cabin depressurizing and claiming all lives on board. With the precision of a surgeon, Marcus began his work, each movement deliberate, each decision critical. Unbeknownst to the others, he wasn't merely fixing a plane. He was saving souls. From the corner of his eye, he caught Alexandra watching him through the glass, her gaze unlike any other, a look not of disdain but of recognition. 30 minutes later, the crisis was averted. Marcus closed the panel, wiped his hands on a cloth frayed from years of service, and started packing his tools. His task was complete, and as always, no thanks were expected. For those in his line of work, doing the job right was not a cause for celebration, but the bare minimum. Then Alexandra emerged once more, this time alone, her steps purposeful as she approached Marcus, ignoring the bewildered glances from her staff. How long would it have taken them to realize the true issue? She asked, her voice a mix of control and curiosity. They would never have found it, Marcus stated plainly. The jet would have crashed, taking everyone with it before they did. The silence that ensued was thick with implications. Alexandra's eyes, now filled with an unsettling intensity, scrutinized Marcus. Come with me, she commanded, her voice echoing with authority, leaving everyone around them in shock. Richard Hastings stood there, his discomfort growing with each passing second as he watched the scene unfold before him. Yet what no one at that bustling airport could have possibly fathomed was that this moment transcended a mere jet repair or the salvation of lives. No, this was the spark that would ignite a story challenging deep-seated prejudices and unveiling long-concealed truths within the aviation elite. Here was the man who had just saved that jet, the unsung hero who had designed the pressurization system for half of Evans Aerospace's fleet, a system for which Richard Hastings had unjustly received all the accolades and promotions. Imagine the shockwaves this revelation could send. How could such a tale of prejudice and recognition not stir the heart? Picture Alexandra Evans, whose decision in the next few moments would not only alter Marcus's life, but would send tremors through the very foundations of an entire industry. As Marcus and Alexandra walked away from the jet, their departure was trailed by a cloud of speculation, the whispers of nervous executives hanging in the air like a thick fog. Richard Hastings' face was a canvas of worry, his body tense almost as if he were a violin string stretched to its breaking point. "My office now," Alexandra commanded, her voice cutting through the tension as she led Marcus to a part of the terminal reserved for the privileged few. Their walk was silent, save for the echo of their footsteps reverberating through the opulent, polished hallways. Upon reaching her private office, a sanctuary of luxury and efficiency, Alexandra closed the door behind them. She motioned for Marcus to sit, her eyes searching his face as she settled behind her desk. "Did you tell me your full name?" she asked, her gaze intense, seeking the truth. "Marcus Jennings," he replied, the weight of the moment settling between them like a heavy silence. Her fingers danced across the tablet screen, an almost imperceptible furrow forming between her brows. Her eyes widened, a spark of recognition igniting within them. "Marcus Jennings," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "MJ." Those initials etched into the very heart of their G7 pressurization system spoke volumes. Marcus, sitting across from her, remained an unreadable statue, though his grip on the armrest subtly tightened. She knew his credentials: 3 patents, 4 innovation awards, a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the prestigious Technical University. Yet here he was, wrenching gears and fixing turbines like any other mechanic. "Why?" she asked, her voice laced with both curiosity and a touch of indignation. "Because no one hires a black engineer from the suburbs to lead development teams," Marcus responded, his tone as steady as the ground beneath them. "And mechanics, Ms. Evans, have bills to pay." Alexandra's hand moved to a drawer, retrieving a folder thick with corporate secrets. Inside the documents bore the signatures of Richard Hastings, the so-called chief engineer behind the G7 system. "Do you know how much profit that system has brought my company in the last 5 years?" she inquired, her fingers sifting through the papers. "Approximately 428 million, Marcus answered promptly. His knowledge of the system's efficiency, reducing fuel consumption by 23% and maintenance costs by 31%, was as precise as the machinery he worked on." Alexandra looked up, her surprise mingling with a newfound respect. "Richard received 3 promotions and a 2.5 million bonus for his work," she added, her voice tinged with a hint of bitterness. "While I continued to fix jets," Marcus concluded, his voice void of any self-pity. Their conversation was abruptly cut short by a sharp knock at the door. Richard Hastings barged in, his face a mask of feigned concern and poorly hidden anxiety. "Alexandra, the board is waiting for you on the video conference, and we need to discuss..." His words faltered as his eyes landed on Marcus, his expression hardening. "What is he still doing here? The service is complete, right?" "Actually, we were discussing intellectual property," Alexandra replied, her calm voice belying the storm within. "Specifically the G7 system." Hastings' face lost its color, his composure slipping. "I don't understand what a mechanic would have to contribute to this discussion." "Really?" Alexandra's response was loaded with irony. "Because I have here." The door swung open with a suddenness that matched the intensity of the unfolding drama, revealing a figure whose presence was as commanding as the thick briefcase she clutched. Dr. Sophia Chun, the esteemed chief legal officer of Evans Aerospace, entered the room, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces with the precision of a hawk. Marcus recognized her instantly from the company reports he had once devoured in a quest for understanding the labyrinthine politics of corporate America. Forgive my tardiness, Alexandra. Dr. Chun began, her voice a blend of apology and authority. I needed to ensure the accuracy of the intellectual property records. Her nod to Marcus was polite yet perfunctory, but her icy stare as she turned to Hastings was anything but casual. And indeed, I've confirmed it all. The digital signature on the original G7 designs matches Mr. Jennings, not you, Richard. Hastings' face turned an alarming shade of pale, his earlier forced laughter now a distant memory. There must be some mistake, he stammered, his voice betraying his shock. He was just an assistant technician under my supervision. Minor contribution, Alexandra interjected sharply, her tablet displaying an incriminating email. Richard, here you are recommending Mr. Jennings' dismissal for technical incompetence, just 3 days after he uploaded the complete G7 project to our internal system. Marcus watched this revelation unfold with a tranquility that even he found surprising. 5 years ago, when he was unceremoniously escorted out of this very building, his dignity stripped away in front of his peers, he had vowed that one day the truth would emerge. He hadn't anticipated it would happen like this in such a stark and sudden manner. Mr. Jennings, Alexander's voice cut through his reverie. Dr. Chun has prepared documents for your review. We're proposing retroactive recognition of your authorship financial compensation for royalties owed, and a proposal. What kind of proposal? Marcus inquired, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. The kind that makes history, she replied, her eyes alight with the promise of justice finally served. Richard, you are temporarily suspended from your duties until the internal investigation concludes. Please surrender your badge to security. Hastings' face contorted with suppressed fury. You can't do this. The board would never. Alexandra cut him off sharply, her voice a blade slicing through his protests. The board will be informed in an hour. And if you wish to leave with any shred of dignity, I suggest you exit through that door before I summon security. As Hastings stormed out the door, slamming echoed his defeat. Once he was gone, Alexandra turned to Marcus and Sophia with a newfound intensity in her eyes. Now we can truly begin, she declared, a sense of purpose infusing her words. The next 2 hours would not only alter Marcus's trajectory, but would also shake the very foundations of Evans Aerospace. Sophia meticulously examined the legal documents, her brow furrowed in concentration. Meanwhile, Marcus watched Alexandra, a revelation dawning upon him. She was not merely correcting an injustice. There was a deeper recognition in her gaze and understanding of something vast and intricate. What none could have foreseen was that Alexandra Evans harbored a secret one that could redefine the company's legacy. Her briefcase held more than just the G7 system documents. It was a trove of evidence from a 2-year investigation into systemic discrimination and intellectual property theft within her own ranks. Marcus Jennings was merely the most visible victim, the one whose evidence was irrefutable. Alexandra had bided her time waiting for the opportune moment to dismantle the corrupt structure from within. In the stark silence of the airport parking lot, Richard Hastings, now a man on the brink, made a frantic call to his allies on the board. His empire was unraveling, yet he clutched at straws, documents, and alliances that he believed could not only end Marcus's career, but also bring Alexandra to her knees. Little did he know his every move was under scrutiny, his calls meticulously recorded, and his fate already sealed. The true struggle was only just beginning. In Alexandra Evans' private meeting room, the atmosphere was a universe away from the bustling airport outside. Marcus, perched on the edge of a plush leather chair, watched as she shut the doors, sealing them off from the world above the terminal. The pressurization system you have been working on. Alexandra started, her voice slicing through the quiet like a knife. It's a modified version of the G7, isn't it? Marcus kept his expression as unreadable as a poker player's. Yes, ma'am. He confirmed, his tone neutral yet firm. It's a system that Richard Hastings is credited with designing, for which he pocketed a 7-figure bonus. She continued sliding a folder across the polished table. Curiously, the original blueprints bear the initials MJ. The silence that followed was thick, pregnant with unspoken truths. 5 years ago, Alexandra resumed, her eyes piercing. You were a junior engineer here at Evans Aerospace. You were dismissed for technical incompetence just 3 days after you submitted a complete design to our development department. Marcus's voice steady replied, I have bills to pay. Alexandra leaned in, her gaze intense. And so do many others, Mr. Jennings. But do you know what else I discovered? You weren't alone. Over the past decade, 7 talented employees, all Black or Latino, were let go under eerily similar circumstances shortly after making significant contributions. The door creaked open and in stepped a middle-aged woman, tablet in hand. Sorry I'm late, she apologized. Marcus, meet Dr. Vanessa Chun, our new general counsel. Vanessa has been investigating for the past 8 months. The lawyer gave a curt nod. Mr. Jennings, we've uncovered substantial evidence of systematic intellectual property theft here at Evans Aerospace. Your case is merely the beginning. In Marcus's mind, memories flashed like scenes from a movie. The solitude of working late in the lab, the thrill of solving a problem that had stumped everyone else, Hastings' cold, calculating eyes when he saw the results, and the crushing public humiliation of being marched out of the building. Why are you telling me this now? He wondered aloud, his voice a mix of hope and skepticism as the pieces of his past and the company's dark secrets began to coalesce into a disturbing picture. Why on earth are you telling me this? He questioned, his voice tinged with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Because I desperately need your help, Alexander responded, his eyes earnest, his tone imploring. Richard Hastings, he's like a puppeteer controlling half the board with his powerful allies. I need undeniable evidence to topple his reign. And what do I stand to gain from this perilous endeavor? Marcus inquired, his gaze sharpening. Recognition to begin with. Alexander promised, his voice rising with a conviction. Financial compensation for the royalties that are rightfully yours. And she paused, the weight of her next words hanging in the air. The position of Director of Innovation that should have been yours 5 years ago. Marcus let out a chuckle, his disbelief evident. Do you truly believe the board would appoint a Black mechanic to such a position? A smile rare and radiant broke across Alexandra's face. When they see what's at stake, they won't have a choice. She declared, her confidence unshaken. Chun, with a subtle slide of his hand, pushed a document across the table. This is a confidentiality agreement. Anything we discuss here. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by an insistent knocking. Richard Hastings stormed in without waiting for an invitation, his expression a carefully crafted facade of concern. Alexander, the board is waiting. And why is this contract employee still here? We were discussing the G7 system. Alexander replied, her voice steady, her gaze unflinching. Hastings' face blanched just slightly. I fail to see what a mechanic could possibly contribute to advanced engineering, he scoffed. Isn't it fascinating, Alexandra countered, showing him a diagram on her tablet. These are the original drawings initialed MJ. Marcus was just an assistant technician at the time. Hastings forced a laugh, trying to dismiss the gravity of the moment. Any minor contribution— Minor, Alexander interrupted sharply. I have emails from you recommending Mr. Jennings' dismissal for technical incompetence just 3 days after he submitted this design. Hastings, now visibly shaken, tried to regain his composure. Alexandra, we have an important video conference. The board won't wait while you indulge in conspiracy theories. Richard Alexander stood, his voice authoritative. You are temporarily suspended pending the conclusion of an internal investigation. You can't do that, Hastings exclaimed, his facade crumbling. The board will be informed in an hour. Alexander cut him off, her tone leaving no room for argument. I suggest you maintain some dignity and leave now. As the door slammed shut behind Hastings, Alexandra turned to Marcus, her eyes alight with determination and a hint of something like hope. As the clock ticks down to the general shareholders meeting with merely 2 weeks left, the urgency for concrete evidence crescendos within the walls of our company. Marcus, however, breaks the tension with a revelation that sends ripples of excitement through the room. "I have something better," he declares, his voice laced with the thrill of victory. The air crackles with anticipation as he unveils his ace, the original G7 prototype, complete with meticulously dated and digitally signed development records. But the real bombshell audio recordings 5 years old of Hastings himself detailing how to erase Marcus's contributions from the company's records, how to tarnish his reputation word by word. Alexandra's eyes widen not just in surprise, but in a dawning respect for the depth of Marcus's foresight. Dr. Chun, ever the stoic observer, nods in admiration. "How did you manage that?" she asks, her voice tinged with awe. Marcus allows himself a rare smile. "Growing up in the poorest neighborhood, you learn quickly that those like me need safeguards against those like him." He explains, his tone both reflective and defiant. Alexandra, stunned, realizes that Marcus's meticulousness extends far beyond his own case. Over 5 years, while he maintained the opulent machinery of the elite, he had been silently amassing evidence of every stolen patent, every usurped idea, every talent squandered by the company's institutional biases. His unassuming demeanor had been his cloak of invisibility. While he tinkered with the jets of billionaires, he was also collecting the ammunition to ignite a revolution. Richard Hastings, who saw Marcus merely as a humiliated mechanic, was about to confront the reality that he had underestimated an engineering prodigy and a master strategist who had turned years of enforced obscurity into the ultimate weapon against his oppressors. 6 months later, the transformation at Evans Aerospace was nothing short of miraculous. The executive floor, once a bastion of homogeneity, now mirrors the diversity that Alexander Evans had long promised. At the heart of this new era stands Marcus Jennings, no longer the anonymous mechanic, but the director of technological innovation, leading the charge in the division that birthed the G7 system. The shareholders' meeting, an event etched in the annals of corporate America, had been the turning point. With Dr. Chen by her side, Alexandra had watched as the old guard was swept away, making room for a future where justice and innovation could finally thrive together. The evidence was damning, a stark portrayal of systematic discrimination and intellectual theft, culminating in the chilling playback of Richard Hastings' voice that resounded through the auditorium speakers. "Assume control of the system," his voice commanded, the echo of his arrogance reverberating. "Erase any hint of her authorship." Who would believe that a black woman from the suburbs crafted something so intricate? "Our clients trust us, not individuals like her." The silence that ensued was shattered by a rising tide of outraged whispers. The company's shares nosedived by 18% that day, yet what unfolded next left even the most cynical astounded. Marcus, in his debut interview with a renowned aviation technology magazine, recounted, "I could have pursued legal action against Hastings alone, but the issue transcended him. It was ingrained in the system." The innovative solution proposed by Marcus, with Alexandra's unwavering support, was nothing short of groundbreaking. They envisioned a program to recognize and compensate every employee whose intellectual contributions had been unjustly claimed over the past decade. Beyond that, they proposed the establishment of an innovation fund aimed directly at empowering historically underrepresented communities. Meanwhile, Richard Hastings found himself ensnared in a web of lawsuits. His professional accolades were stripped away, his once sterling reputation in tatters. The man who had once scoffed at Marcus on the tarmac now struggled to secure even a minor consultancy role. "Revenge wasn't my aim," Marcus confessed to Alexandra at the grand opening of the Evans Aerospace-funded Community Technology Development Center. "It was about justice, about making things visible." The center, nestled in Marcus's childhood neighborhood, offered cutting-edge technical training to young minds deprived of quality education. Under his mentorship, the program had already birthed 3 revolutionary patents from its students. "You know what's ironic?" Alexandra pondered, observing a cluster of teenagers huddled around a prototype. "If Hastings had only shared the credit with you, he'd still—" "Oh, the audacity of greed." It blinds even the most perceptive, causing them to completely underestimate the boundless potential that others possess. Imagine the shock, the sheer audacity when Alexandra proposed something to Marcus merely 3 months after his hiring. It wasn't merely a promotion to management she was dangling before him, but a partnership in every sense of the word. I thought she was out of her mind when she suggested a merger, Marcus later shared on Good Morning America. Not a marriage as the gossip columns whispered, but a business merger. His modest engineering venture, which he had nurtured in his garage over those 5 years as a mechanic, now held a staggering 30% stake in Evans Aerospace. The executives who had once mocked him on that fateful runway morning were no longer laughing. Some had resigned, unable to stomach serving under her visionary leadership. Others learned in a humbling twist of fate that talent and competence know no color. On the first anniversary of that life-altering incident, Alexandra orchestrated a grand event. She invited every employee to witness the unveiling of a groundbreaking propulsion system crafted by Marcus and his team. This innovation promised to slash commercial aircraft fuel consumption by a staggering 40%. As she stood before the crowd, Alexandra's voice was thick with emotion. A year ago, many of you witnessed a black man being ridiculed while he was saving lives, she began. Today, that very same man is not just saving our industry, our planet, but more crucially, he is salvaging dreams that prejudice could have crushed. Marcus surveyed the audience, his gaze landing on faces that once treated him with disdain, but now stood in applause. He didn't take pride in this shift. He knew some clapped from self-interest rather than genuine change of heart. Yet his eyes caught the young engineers from diverse backgrounds, now thriving in roles once thought unattainable. For them, every second of his struggle had been worth it. In the front row sat an unexpected figure, his mother, Mrs. Jennings, 72, who had toiled as a cleaning lady in corporate buildings, her presence a silent testament to the transformative power of perseverance and integrity. In the final chapter of Marcus's journey, we see the culmination of his life's work, not in the accolades he received or the fortune he amassed, but in the lives he touched and transformed. Picture the scene: a woman, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, stood before him. She had sacrificed her entire life so that her son could attend college. Her story, like so many others, underscored a profound truth Marcus shared in his impassioned speech. Real change doesn't occur merely when individuals like him break through barriers. It happens when doors are flung wide open, ensuring that talent isn't squandered due to baseless prejudices. True justice, he declared, is not just about individual victories, but about structural transformation. The narrative of the mechanic who rose to become co-owner of a company didn't just inspire, it ignited a flame in the hearts of an entire generation of young engineers from marginalized communities. This story wasn't just about one man's success. It was a beacon of hope, signaling that change was possible. Following suit, other corporations began to implement similar programs driven by both societal demand and the undeniable success of Evans Aerospace, which had embraced diversity not as a buzzword, but as a living, breathing practice. Success, however, did not erase the deep scars left by a lifetime of discrimination. Yet it provided Marcus with a platform, voice to channel his outrage into something transformative. As he observed the bright-eyed students at his community center, he realized that his greatest triumph was not his job or his wealth, but the unburdened hope in those young eyes that did not carry the same heavy doubts that had weighed on him for decades. The best response to prejudice, Marcus knew, was not his own success, but the creation of pathways for others to follow paths clear of the obstacles that had once threatened to crush his dreams. If this tale of overcoming discrimination has stirred something within you, if it has made you ponder the true essence of dignity and justice, then we urge you, subscribe to our channel now. Follow us as we continue to share stories of justice that affirm a fundamental truth. Sometimes the most profound act of dignity is not merely surmounting barriers, but dismantling them entirely so that others need not struggle as we did. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Your comments, like shares and subscriptions, mean the world to us, for together we can keep this conversation alive, ensuring that the walls of prejudice are not just scaled, but are brought down for good.